Decided to surprise my girlfriend with a big gesture to break the 4-month intimacy drought, hoping she'll finally open up. Back in April-ish, my girlfriend and I, were having sex 2 to 3 times a day. We live in an apartment together, she's been taking online classes for her master's and I'm working from home since the lockdown started. At some point, she got really busy and tired with a project, so we obviously stopped having sex temporarily. Since it's gotten over though, which was nearly 4 months ago at this point, she's turned me down every time I've tried to initiate or set the mood for sex. I have never pressured her, I usually wait a couple of nights before asking again when she tells me she's not in the mood, which turned into waiting a week, which turned into waiting 2 weeks. At this point I'm really concerned, we've never gone anywhere near 4 months without sex before, we've both always had pretty high sex drives. At this point it's important to note that I do not press the matter or pester or pressure her in any way. The moment she says she's not in the mood, I back off immediately. I don't think I've fucked up anywhere because she's always quite apologetic when she turns me down. Our relationship is pretty much perfect in every other way too, we cuddle and hug and have game nights and movie nights, it's never felt like we're drifting apart at any point. She hasn't been behaving differently, like she's upset or depressed. We give each other plenty of space too, it's not like we're constantly together, we have our own friend circles and we curl up on our own devices from time to time. I've tried talking to her about it, but she gets really upset and keeps insisting that nothing is wrong. I drop the matter pretty quickly too because I don't want her to feel like I'm pressuring her to have sex, I just want her to let me in and tell me what's wrong. I honestly don't care about the sex, but I know there's something she's not telling me and it's gone on long enough that I'm getting extremely worried about her. I've tried talking to her about it, but she gets really upset and keeps insisting that nothing is wrong. Oop, thanks for the response. I don't want her to feel pressured or accused of anything, but I do want an explanation. Do you have any advice on how I can be sort of firm but also make her feel comfortable at the same time? Oop, thank you so much. I think this is the best advice I've gotten so far. I am going to tell her that I don't mind giving her space and time till she's ready to talk about it, but I am going to ask her to acknowledge that there at least is something she's not telling me, if only for my own reassurance that I'm not going crazy. Other than that, you're right, I haven't done something special for her in a while because we've both been busy. This weekend I'm gonna go big, not a proposal or anything, I know that would be inappropriate, I'm not stupid, just a really big treat for her. Wish me luck. Update 1. There were some mixed responses, with some people suggesting I insist on addressing it with her because she's hiding something, with others recommending I give her time to open up on her own. Ultimately I decided to sort of go for a combo of the two. Friday, when we were both done with work, we sat down and had a discussion. I told her that I could give her the space and time she needed till she was ready to talk to me about it, but I couldn't leave it unaddressed. She needed to acknowledge that there at least was something that she didn't feel ready to tell me, and that was fine, but she at least needed to acknowledge its existence, if only so I stopped feeling like I was going crazy. She started sobbing when I was done and then she started explaining everything. Some background that I didn't mention in my previous post because it didn't really seem relevant is that my girlfriend has PCOS. One of the consequences of this is that she finds it very difficult to lose weight and has been insecure about her body for most of her life. About a year ago, completely of her own choice, I have always told her that she's beautiful to me no matter what her weight, she resolved to start losing weight, both for her health and to feel better about her body. She started going to the gym a couple times a week, and I was supportive and also cut out all my own junk food consumption in solidarity. Since the lockdown started and gyms shut, apparently she started slowly gaining some weight back due to stress eating and lack of exercise. I am ashamed to say I did not even notice that she was torturing herself over her weight all this while. She admitted that she stopped having sex because she was terrified I would stop finding her attractive after seeing her naked. I reassured her that I think she's gorgeous and attractive no matter what and I tell her this every day, but she was afraid that would have changed once I saw the weight she had put on. The rest of the conversation consisted of me reassuring her that she's beautiful and her appreciating but not really believing me. After a bit, she asked me to change the topic, and I reluctantly agreed. We had a fairly quiet dinner. She was a little sad and relieved at the same time at having told me, I think. And I was busy scheming. The next morning before work I told her she looked lovely again and she gave me a wan smile, like she appreciated it but didn't really believe me. But that was okay. I was gonna convince her. I asked her to pick up the groceries that evening because I was gonna have a meeting run late. The moment she left home, I got to work. I dug out some fairy lights and a bunch of candles from storage and started setting them up in the living room. Made a couple of playlists and charged the speaker. Snuck down to the florist and bought a giant bouquet. Some more background, I hate dancing because I suck massively at it, while my girlfriend loves it. She used to go dancing every month or two with her girlfriends before lockdown. I'd join in sometimes because it was worth how happy it made her, but she definitely missed it way more than me. So when she got back, naturally I greeted her with what were probably the most ridiculous dance moves in the history of mankind. I'm not gonna lie, folks. She laughed. She laughed a lot. She took a short video, and we both laughed while watching it later. My movement resembled a 5-year-old practicing kung fu more than it resembled dancing, and I had stuck a rose in my ear for maximum ridiculousness. Totally worth it, though. I have no idea how she ever thought she's ugly, her smile is just so fucking radiant. We danced like idiots for a while before I switched to the slow dance playlist. It was definitely the happiest I'd seen her in a long time. I'd been a bad boyfriend and somehow missed how much she missed everything else. I should have done it months ago. I told her all this. Told her she's the most beautiful woman in my eyes and always will be. And yeah, we had sex. Last night was all about her. She needed to feel special and I had been missing that for too long. I offered to make dance nights a weekly thing afterwards. Kind of as a substitute for the workouts she's been missing, if she wants. She tore up a little. She knows how much I hate dancing. She told me that wasn't necessary. Apparently sex is just as much of a workout as dancing. And we have a lot of missed workouts to catch up on. I'm certainly not complaining. In all seriousness though, I'm gonna dip into my savings a little and order a home treadmill. She can't afford one right now because of college bills, so I'll surprise her with it. Smile. Thank you to everyone who helped me out with their advice. Edit. Oh wow, I am completely overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support here. Thanks for all the awards. I just logged back into this account, but I promise I'm going to read each of the replies. One thing I saw pop up a couple of times that I just want to reassure you guys about is that she's mentioned wanting a treadmill but not being able to afford one several times in the past, so I know she wants one. However, I figured that it's dumb to take the chance, and one surprise was good enough, and if there's anything this whole experience has taught me, it's the importance of communication. So I'm going to bring it up at dinner tonight that I comfortably have enough saved up to purchase a home workout machine. Since I saw cycles/ellipticals being mentioned, we'll figure out which one we want, and that I'd love to buy one for our home for both of us to use. Thank you all so much once again for your advice. Edit 2, RIP me, lol, the comments are coming faster than I can read them now. There's no way for me to reply to every one of them, unfortunately. There are a lot of fantastic suggestions for diets, exercise machines, dance classes and everything in between, so thank you so much for all of them. She has a great endocrinologist, whose advice she will ultimately be following, but there are some great points to bring up with him. It is really touching and overwhelming to see all this support. Thank you all so much. Final edit, she loved the idea of getting some equipment to do our workouts at home together, so we're going to sit down and do our research tonight before picking the one we like most. We've gotten some fantastic advice here and we'll be looking at ellipticals, bikes, rowing machines, Just Dance on the Switch and a bunch of other stuff that you guys suggested. To all the people who commented to insist she's cheating on me because I'm a simp, Lamau, thank you for setting the exemplary standard for being macho. Insulting strangers online is so delightfully masculine. The lovely folks who told me to dump her because she's fat get the disappointing but not unexpected shitheads shout out as well. For the overwhelming majority of people, though, I am just breathtaken by the kind and supportive comments we've gotten. Thank you for the treasure trove of advice and LPTs, and all the love. Update 2. We got engaged about 3 years ago and adopted a cat, but it went a bit downhill from there because of a bunch of different health issues that hit her consecutively. She's largely recovered from the temporary ones, and the permanent ones are a lot more under control now thanks to regular health checkups and medication, but it was a rocky couple of years, not for our relationship, just for us in general. All the medical issues also meant she hasn't worked since, which isn't an issue financially but for other reasons which I'll come to in a moment. She's doing a lot better mentally now as well, at least relative to last year. She still struggles with self-esteem and feeling like a burden to her loved ones, especially me, especially because of the aforementioned lack of work over the last few years. She's a lot more communicative about these things now though instead of bottling them up, so she's not let our relationship suffer for this. And I like to think that even if her self-esteem hasn't gone up, her way of coping with it is a lot healthier now, and that's an important step in the right direction. She's even been looking to get back to work over the last month or so, despite the challenges of low self-esteem, severe imposter syndrome, and having to explain a years-long absence, and I'm really proud of her for not just giving up after the hand she's been dealt health-wise. I'm doing really well. I switched jobs and fields about a year back and I'm making a lot more money now, and I'm enjoying my work a lot more too. I actually started therapy recently as well, because there were some personal discipline issues I wanted to fix, and I ended up discovering a whole host of other issues I had repressed, and bringing them back out into the open and dealing with them has been simultaneously terrifying and liberating. But it's also made me a much better friend and partner, so looks like I'm gonna have to keep braving them for as long as it takes. As for the biggest one, as is probably obvious from the title, we got married 2 months ago. We would have done it a lot earlier if she hadn't had a bunch of health issues pop up unexpectedly, but with her on the mend, we were finally able to plan and organize the things so everyone we wanted to be there could be there. I honestly sometimes still find it surreal, like WTF I'm a husband? It still feels like I'm dreaming sometimes and I'm still that clueless wide-eyed college kid, but I look at the woman sleeping next to me and I remember all the ways I've changed for the better, all the ways I've grown up because of her influence, and I feel really lucky to have her. And I know that I, and she, still have a lot more growing up to do, but I'm feeling this overwhelming contentedness within because we get to do all that growing up together. I don't know if I'll update this again, maybe if I get reminded of this account sometime in the future, and something major has happened since. Until then, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays everyone, and I hope the new year is your best year yet. Now on to second story. Was asked to take in my son's best friend from a troubled home, and now I'm torn between responsibility and compassion. I have one son, Henry, aged 12. Henry is best friends with a boy named Archie, aged 14. It has always been clear that Archie comes from a troubled home. From what I can gather, and I do not have the full information, Archie's mum is a drug addict, and Archie has been on the at-risk register for a long while. Honestly, I don't know why it has taken them this long to decide he is being moved into foster care. Last Friday, I received a call from my son's school, saying they couldn't discuss it with me but asked if I would give them consent for my information to be passed on to Archie's social worker. I agreed, and not long after, I had a call from his social worker explaining that a section something or other was being put in place, which meant that Archie was going to be removed from his home and placed into foster care. I was told that the school had recommended me and asked to see if I could take him in, basically. They said it would likely be long-term until he turns 18. I honestly didn't know what to say. I was in shock. I have been unofficially supporting Archie for a while now. I pick him up from his house and drop him off at school with my son. He spends a lot of weekends at my place. On days where he doesn't come to my place, I make sure to pack him something to eat when I pick him up because he told me that his school lunch is his only meal most days. I buy him soap and deodorant, and I even wash his clothes for him. But supporting however I can and taking him on fully is a big jump. I'm a single dad. I have a decent job, but I'm far from well off. I live in a small 2-bedroom house, meaning Henry and Archie would have to share a room, which they do now when Archie stays, but it's only for short bursts. Plus, there's the responsibility of taking on another human. I was told that they had a lack of foster carers in the local area, so if I didn't agree to take him, it is likely he would have to move counties and schools. I don't want that. I was already having Archie stay with me for the 2-week Christmas holiday, so I asked if I could think about it and give them a firm answer in the new year. They agreed. Archie has not yet been informed about any of this. I've tried to make this a normal Christmas for him, as much as possible. My heart is telling me, of course, you're going to take that little boy in, but my brain is worried about the responsibility and cost of taking on another mouth to feed, another boy to clothe. At the same time, I keep thinking about Archie's situation. He has already had such a rough start in life, and I know he needs stability and care more than anything else. I can't bear the thought of him being uprooted again, losing his school, his friends, and the small semblance of normality he has here. I keep asking myself if I can really give him what he needs, and I don't know if I have all the answers right now. I've always taught Henry the importance of kindness, and I see how much he cares about Archie too. Part of me feels that this might not just be me taking on more responsibility, it's also about giving him the chance to grow up with a sense of love and belonging. So, I suppose I'm left balancing what's practical with what feels right in my heart. And I'm leaning towards saying yes. I spoke to my own mom about it, and she thinks it's an awful idea. She's worried I'm biting off more than I can chew, especially as a single dad. She reminded me that I already have a lot on my plate with work, the house, and raising Henry on my own. She said that taking in another child, especially one with a difficult background, would add stress and might affect my ability to provide for Henry properly. She didn't say it outright, but I could tell she's afraid this might make life harder for all of us, including Archie. I understand her concerns, honestly, I do. But I can't imagine just turning him away when he needs help the most. I told her that I haven't made a final decision yet, but that I need to think about what's best for everyone involved, not just what's easiest. And I haven't even discussed any of this with Henry yet, which will be a huge factor in my final decision. Update 1. When I was asked to take in Archie, at first I felt honored. Then I felt worried about everything. I am quite an anxious person in general, and my thoughts were flooded with concerns about whether I'd be good enough to support Archie in the way he needs. I love my mom, but she didn't help. I think I get my anxiety from her, although she has it on a much higher scale than I do. Every possible thing that could go wrong, she was texting me about all week. You're already stretched thin with work and Henry. You won't get one-to-one time with Henry anymore. How will you afford everything? These are real concerns, and I'm glad she brought them up because they gave me the opportunity to think about how I could mitigate them. A few of you mentioned the fostering allowance, which I knew about, but I couldn't find any concrete information on how much it would actually be. Every source online seemed to give a different answer, but none suggested it was very much. However, as some of you advised, I called the social worker's office and said I was seriously considering taking in Archie, which they were thrilled about, but I needed to understand the finances first to see if it was feasible. They said they couldn't provide exact numbers, as every case is different and it isn't decided until a placement is found. However, they told me the minimum would be around £190, about $240 US, per week, and that it would likely be completely tax-free. Additionally, I'd receive a significant discount on things like council tax. That was honestly a lot more than I expected, and much higher than most of the figures I'd seen online. They also put me in touch with some other foster carers who answered my questions, which was incredibly helpful. This week has been very busy. I worked out my finances, added the estimated fostering allowance, and calculated how much Archie would likely increase my expenses. It worked out that I'd actually have a surplus compared to my current situation. Many of the foster carers I spoke to don't work full-time, using the allowance to supplement their income. I'm not sure if I want to do that, but they mentioned it helps to work part-time since fostering involves a lot of work, meetings, reports, and other responsibilities. On top of that, I'd need to complete training during the first year to become fully qualified. I considered it, and with the additional allowance, I could move to a 0-6 contract, working 3 days per week, while still covering the costs of moving to a 3-bedroom house. While that would leave me with slightly less disposable income, it wouldn't be a significant reduction. I've spoken with my work, and they said they'd support me if I decided to do this, but I haven't made a final decision. I don't want it to seem like I'm taking advantage of Archie's allowance. After sorting out the finances, I needed to talk to Henry. This was honestly the most important part of my decision. If Henry said no, I'd struggle to go ahead with it. I took him out and explained the situation. I didn't go into the details of why Archie is going into care, as it's not my story to tell, even though Archie himself has been open about his rough home life. I discussed the potential challenges, less one-to-one time, less privacy, at least in the short term while we find a bigger house, and so on. Henry was incredibly supportive. He said that he and Archie had talked about how they both wished Archie could come and live with us. I told him not to mention anything to Archie yet until I had the chance to speak with him, and he agreed. Yesterday, I arranged for social services to come over. Archie, his social worker, and I sat down to talk. They told Archie he was going to be placed in foster care. Archie cried a lot, I cried a lot, and he asked to see his mom, which the social worker said they'd arrange as soon as possible. In that moment, Archie didn't seem like a teenager, he seemed like a small child whose world was crumbling. Then they asked Archie if he'd want to stay with me. Although he was still distraught about being in care, he said he'd love to stay with me. We discussed what it would mean and how it would affect us. Afterward, Archie and his social worker spoke privately, and then the social worker and I talked. They expressed how thrilled they were about my decision and said they were pleased I planned to move to a bigger house soon, as Archie would need his own space, which I fully agree with. Normally, the boys spend most of their time upstairs playing Xbox, but later that day Archie came down and asked if we could watch a movie together. He sat next to me, rested his head on my shoulder, and said, "Thank you for letting me stay with you." Writing this, I can feel tears welling up in my eyes again. I put my arm around him and said I'd always be there for him. Today, Archie seems a little down, which is entirely understandable. I honestly expected him to take it harder than he has. To cheer him up, we're going to see the new Lion King movie, even though I hate those live-action films, but this is for Archie, and then going out to eat, letting the boys choose where. I might return in a few months to give an update on how things are going. Update 2. It depends. This is called a friends and family placement in England, when social services have decided it's in the child's best interest to be placed with a familiar person rather than a traditional foster placement. Friends and family placements can have more of a loose set of restrictions than a traditional placement. But OOP would only be cleared to take in Archie. He wouldn't, for example, be able to take in another child unless he decides to do full training. They would be able to make choices that would be different compared to a traditional foster home. For example, social services has to weigh up there are no local foster homes, meaning his schooling would be disturbed, would lose friends and support network. How would that impact him? With having to share a room. Especially considering Archie has already been sharing a room regularly.